Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Josh Strife Hayes, and I've played Neverwinter online for a couple of years now, and I've always mained a Hunter Ranger. Now, I play a Trapper Hunter Ranger. In this video, I'd like to explain to you what a Trapper is, why I think it's one of the best classes in the game, and exactly how I play it. Now, I'm not the best Trapper or the best Hunter Ranger in the game, but I do think I know what I'm talking about, and I've managed to solo Lair of Lostmouth, Demogorgon, Kessel's Retreat, and the Shores of Tern without the best items in the game. I've not even finished all the campaigns. If you have a look at my character, I'm still running rank 10 runes when rank 14 is currently the best. I am not the best geared, and I am not the most experienced, but I do think I've been capable of pulling off some very impressive feats, and I'd like to share those with you now. The reason I want to make this guide is because I've read all the guides on how to build characters, and I've watched all the videos. And they all tell you where you should put your points, but they don't tell you what you should do on a second-to-second basis. How do you actually play the Trapper? What do you do in certain situations? And that's what I'd like to talk to you about right now. Now, first of all, what is a Trapper? So the Hunter Ranger has 3 different paths we could head down: archery, combat, and Trapper. I've gone down Trapper. The point of a Trapper is to keep all the enemies as close together as possible and then provide massive AoE, that's area of effect, damage within that small confined area. Keep everything in a nice little tight bundle and then hit everything as often as possible. Now, most of our power comes from, if we follow the Trapper through to the end, this capstone here, biting snares. That's one of the most powerful effects we have as a Trapper Hunter Ranger. I'm going to read that to you, and then we're going to work backwards, and I will explain why everything that I do is based around that. So biting snares says, when you apply grasping roots or thorned roots, you gain biting snares. Biting snares causes your next stance shift, that's changing from ranged to melee, to grant you Master Trapper, which generates 20% of your AP, increases your damage by 30%, and increases your thorned roots and control duration by 60% for 10 seconds. So what's grasping roots and thorned roots? Well, we can pull back here and have a look at thorned roots. This is where it all starts to link together. Your strong grasping roots, the keywords strong grasping roots, are upgraded to thorned roots. Thorned roots deal a certain percentage, I'm at 200% because I've maxed it out, 200% of your main hand weapon damage every second. When hitting a control immune target, an additional 450% of your main hand is dealt immediately. So strong grasping roots are upgraded to thorned roots. Nice. What about this down here? Serpent's Bite below that. Whenever we switch from stance to stance, we do more damage. When you switch from melee, you do more damage in range. When you switch from range, more damage in melee. Swiftness of the Fox, look at that. Your melee encounter and at-will powers shorten the cooldown of your ranged powers. So when I attack using my encounter powers in melee stance, all of my ranged cooldowns are going quicker. And let me just show you what that means. As a Hunter Ranger, you can change stance from melee to ranged like I'm doing now, and you have different encounter powers based on what stance you're in. If I use one of my encounter powers now, you see there's a 14-second cooldown. That's quite a long cooldown. 14 seconds is a hell of a long time. But if I change stance, the cooldowns go quicker. Watch, I'll fire that attack again, then I'll change stance, use all 3 attacks here, and my daily, change back, and it's good to go instantly. I've just negated my entire cooldown. Fantastic, I can spam my encounter powers really quickly. Let's have a look at some more. Weak grasping roots, grasp for longer with ancient roots. Trapper's Cunning, your critical strikes now have a 25% chance to apply weak grasping roots, and we've just seen over here with ancient roots that weak grasping roots now last even longer. Wow. Everything to do with roots is all combining together. Forest Bomb, this one just here. When you apply grasping roots, you reduce the cooldown of all your currently recharging powers. Well, that's pretty impressive. Your next melee encounter power causes your next range power to do 10% more damage, and vice versa. So if I attack in range stance with an encounter power, and then change to melee, when I attack again I'm going to do 10% more damage. That's awesome. That's really cool. What I should do is find the most powerful attack and always use that first whenever I switch stance. Because 10% of the most powerful attack is going to be the biggest increase in damage because of maths. And what's this one here? When you switch stances, you move quicker. Nice. Which two haven't I done? Let's have a look at the two I haven't done. Readied stance, when I switch stances, I gain more action points. I don't really need more action points, I'm gaining loads anyway. And this one, slashes speed. The action point cost is reduced. Doesn't bother me at all, because action points, we're never going to run out of them. So we can see how the trapper's all built up. It relies on changing stance from range to melee, back to range, and using your encounter powers as fast as possible to apply grasping roots to everything and reduce everything's cooldowns. You don't really need the mouse. See these attacks, these at-will attacks? I basically never need them. As a trapper, your encounter powers are your main things. So what are they? What are the encounter powers I'm going to use? Well, let's go through and have a look. There are three main modes that I see you being in as a trapper, or that I tend to find myself in. The most common mode is when I'm trying to do as much damage as fast as possible to everything. I'm a glass cannon. I'm going to run around and hit everything as fast as possible. And this is the setup that I've got for that. On my mouse, I'm going with Rapid Shot and Hunter's Teamwork. Hunter's Teamwork is nice, but only really useful in bosses. I tend not to use the mouse too much at all. Rapid Shot's just there because I hold the left click down anyway. So if there's a second or two when my encounter powers are recharging, I'll just fire off a couple of arrows. What have I got over here? I've got Aspect of the Lone Wolf, gain 5% deflect. That's actually a stayover from when I was trying to solo Lostmouth. I'm going to go with Aspect of the Pack there instead. Gives me combat advantage. Cruel Recovery gives me temporary hit points. Again, that was a leftover from me trying to solo something. I'm going to stick Aspect of the Serpent on. Aspect of the Serpent adds a stacking buff on every power use, increasing my damage. If the stacks are added from range, they increase my melee. If they're added from melee, they increase my range. So, attacking in range stance will make my next melee attack more powerful, and vice versa. That relies, and that ties in quite nicely to a feat we had earlier. Everything's about switching round, all about switching. Now let's talk about the actual encounter powers. This is the meat of what you're going to be doing. These are the most important things. I use Cordon of Arrows, Hindering Shot, and Constricting Arrow. The reason for this is Cordon of Arrows is lovely. It's powerful. It can be fired 3 times. It aims. Cordon of Arrows, for those of you who aren't Hunter Rangers, is this. I can choose a target anywhere in the room, and when I fire, I will leave a little, almost like a minefield here. When enemies walk into this, they get hurt. And when I change to melee, the melee version of Cordon of Arrows is this one, Plant Growth. Plant Growth is a huge area of effect melee attack. And the coolest thing about Plant Growth is it does nearly 100,000 damage. It's one of the hardest hitting attacks I've got. And seeing as I'm increasing the damage of my attacks by a certain percentage, increasing Plant Growth is really going to hit hard. What's the next attack on my ranged repertoire? It is Hindering Shot. Not as powerful, but the reason I'm using it is it applies Grasping Roots. It's this one. It's a nice quick snapshot to fire. You can see it applies Grasping Roots, and that target dummy is having damage done to it constantly, because Grasping Roots are, of course, upgraded to Biting Snares and Thorned Roots. And then over here, we have Constricting Arrow. Causes strong Grasping Roots to not only constrict whoever I hit, but all enemies around it. So if I fire Constricting Arrow at these target dummies over here, you'll see, oh, look at that, roots are popping up on all of them, and they're all taking damage. Brilliant. What are the 2 melee versions of those attacks I just showed you? Well, the melee version is Hindering Strike and Steel Breeze. Strong Grasping Roots and slashes everything around me. Steel Breeze hits in a circle, and this one just here, Hindering Strike, just cuts. It's slightly smaller range, that one, but it does again apply Grasping Roots. So what have I got? I've got 3 attacks that help me corral the enemies together using Cordon of Arrows, and then apply roots to everything. And all the damage I do in range stance is going to increase my melee, and all the melee is going to increase my range, and everything's going to reduce everything's cooldowns. And what you end up with is this. Let me talk you through the whole rotation. I see a group of enemies. I'm going to fire a Cordon of Arrows. I'm then going to press R and E to fire off both my other ranged powers. I'm going to change stance and move forward. Now when I move forward, I'm actually going to dodge, like that. The reason I dodge every single time I move forward is because after I've hit the enemy with these 3 attacks, ranged enemies are normally attacking me back by now. By dodging, I instantly dodge through one of their first attacks. It's always a gamble, but it's always a nice chance that you'll dodge something. And when I get closer, I'm going to now use my melee attacks. Now I've got a percentage damage increase on my next melee attack. Whatever I hit with next is going to do more. So what's my most powerful melee attack? Well, it's Plant Growth, that one just there. It's going to do 123,000 damage. So hit Plant Growth first to make sure the boost goes onto that one, and then just press press R and E. Cut and cut. By the time I've done this, I can now change back to ranged. All my encounters will have cooled down. If they have not cooled down, I can press number 2 because the 2 dailies I've got are Slasher's Mark and Disruptive Shot. The reason I've got Disruptive Shot on there is not to do any massive amount of damage, but because it can be fired off using a relatively small amount of AP. It also reduces the cooldowns of everything. Let's take you through that a little bit quicker. So it's going to be Cordon, R, E, run forward, Q, R, E. And we can just look here and see these target dummies are having damage done to them constantly. It's ticking down. That still wasn't as fast as I can possibly do it. That would be 1, 2, 3, dodge in, spam the keyboard, cut everything down, dodge back out, spam again. Okay? Your job as a trapper is never ever have any encounter powers that you can use. As soon as they are good to go again, you use them. Cooldowns, shouldn't be seeing any of them. 22-second cooldowns doesn't bother you at all. Everything should be good to go all the time. As a trapper, it is so intense as a player to keep up. You're never going to have a second off. You're never going to be able to walk into a fight and just hold left click. You've got to run forward and attack pretty much everything all the time. You're going to be changing stances all the time. You're going to be spamming your encounter powers all the time. You don't get a second break. If, as a trapper, you mess up your rotation, your DPS goes way down. But if you can focus and keep up with it, your DPS constantly stays remarkably high. That is what you're going to be most of the time. A glass cannon DPS sweeping mobs up. What if there's only one enemy? What if there's a boss? There's a big boss we've got to take down. Well, now all these kind of sweeping powers, they're nice, but what if we want something more targeted? Well, we've got that as well. Like I said, we're a Swiss Army knife class. We can do things. Jump into powers. I'm going to change. Now, if it's a big boss, I'm not too bothered about Cordon of Arrows because I don't need to move the enemy around a bit. I don't need to corral them into one space, so that can go. I'm going to replace that with Long Strider's Shot. Long Strider's Shot is brilliant when you're in a team. It's absolutely fantastic. We're going to come up here. Have a look. Commanding Shot. Your shot lowers the damage your target deals and increases the damage they take. Oh, yes, please. Absolutely. I'll take that. That sounds great. And Hawkeye over here. You deal 15% bonus damage with your encounter powers for 5 seconds. One nearby ally gains this buff at 50% effectiveness. But, would you look at this? I've got it on rank 4. See, effects +2 and then effects +2. So we're giving all of our allies more damage. Beautiful. Let's stick Hawkshot on there as well. So all of our attacks are now single targeted. Let's have a look what this does to our range stance. So Q is now going to be Long Strider's Shot. That is a lovely buff for everyone in the party. R and E take a little longer to fire, so when you press these, be prepared, watch this, for a slightly longer animation. And then when I press E, lovely eagle sound, but again it's a long animation. And when I change to melee, I've got to dodge in. Now E and R, melee, now don't actually do anything as far as attacks go. R gives everyone temporary hit points, and E is going to make everyone hit slightly harder. Q, however, the melee version of Longstrider's Shot, is beautiful for single targets. This is Gushing Wound. Gushing Wound hits a target and then constantly keeps ticking damage on them. Let's just read through Gushing Wound here. You slice a target, causing them to bleed over 20 seconds. Allies who strike the target cause the bleed to advance. So if you hit an enemy with Gushing Wound, and then your allies hit the same enemy, that wound's just going to go and go and go. The damage is going to stack up and up and up. How does this play out with our actual attack then? Well, relatively similar. We want to be spamming the encounters as fast as we can. And then as soon as we're done, we dodge forward. Now remember, when we switch to melee, we have a percentage damage boost. And we want to put the percentage damage boost onto Gushing Wound. Then we use the 2 buff powers, change back out, and fire away. Now the reason I'm always stepping back when I use Longstrider's Shot is because it's only effective when you're far away. You keep dodging away, and if you are good, you can keep Longstrider's Shot and the bonus it provides up for your team the entire time. Beautiful. So that's what's going to happen if you've got a single target to take on and your team needs your help. What if you've got a couple of targets to take on and you're dying? Well, we're going to need to increase our survivability a lot. Thankfully, we can do that. We go into our powers again, and we're now going to play even more defensively. I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to remove Hawkeye. That's increasing my damage. I don't want that. I'm going to change it to Fox's Cunning instead. So, Fox's Cunning does the following. In range stance, grants me Fox's Cunning, and if you've got it powered up, it actually grants everyone Fox's Cunning. You are guaranteed to dodge the next attack. Very, very useful in bosses. And if I switch to melee, we get this one over here. So this is Fox Shift, dash to nearby targets, reducing their run speed. Lovely. So if I press it, this happens now. Beautiful. The reason I use that is because if you time it right, it's actually a dodge. You gain a few immunity frames during that animation. If an enemy attacks you, or if you're in the red kind of danger zone, and you use Fox Shift, you can both 1, dodge through the attack, and 2, get out the danger zone and jump to a nearby enemy. It increases our number of dodges. Now I want to talk about dodges quickly now as well. When we're nearly done, we'll see the Hunter Ranger in action. We have so many dodges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 when it charges up. So 5, and then a second to wait for a 6th. We then also have the daily Slasher's Mark. See that one just there, Slasher's Mark? If I press 1 and I jump toward the enemy and attack, well, that's got immunity frames as well. We've got E, Fox Shift, that we just saw. That's got immunity frames. And we've got Fox's Cunning, where we guarantee to block the next attack, guaranteed to dodge it. We've got so many dodges. It sounds crazy, but we can tank mid-range enemies by just dodging them constantly. Keep the aggro on you and just dodge. Now if I just use some attacks here to build up my AP, I want to show you that Disruptive Shot, in a really strange way, is a very, very situational dodge. Now, Disruptive Shot is the second daily I've got going on. It doesn't dodge, but it does move you. So if I stand on the edge of the bricks over here, standing on the edge of the bricks, and I use Disruptive Shot, you'll notice that I get pushed back very slightly. Okay? See how I've now been pushed back off the bricks? That happens instantly. So if I'm standing right on the edge of a red circle, and I don't want to waste a second walking backwards, I'll just aim at the nearest enemy and press the number 2 to do a Disruptive Shot and get myself instantly out of that area. So I'm walking around, I'm dodging, I'm attacking, suddenly there's red, I aim at the enemy, press 2, I've pushed myself out of it. I've given myself an extra dodge, I've manipulated my character away from that danger zone. That, very simply, is how I play a trapper. I'll set myself back up exactly how I normally do, and then I'll go through the rotation with you one more time, and then I'll show you it working. I wouldn't ever say something and then not show you it working. So constricting arrow, and then up here again we've got hindering shot. Remember, this is all about the roots. This is all about applying all the roots together. So we're going to private queue up for Kessel's Retreat. This is all about the roots, the strong grasping roots, the weak grasping roots. It's all about melee doing more damage when you come from range doing more damage when you come from melee. I've got to say again, guys, if you want a simple, easy class where you just run in and hold left click and you win, this is not the class for you. If you want to be able to take on groups and to buff your team and to take on solo bosses and to have incredible survivability, this is absolutely the class for you. But bear in mind, it will ask so much of you. It will ask so much of you and never give you a break. So let's have a look at the situation we're in here. White Commander, Battle White, White Commander, dangerous guy over there. These guys are not to be messed with. They are tough, and annoyingly they're all spread out. I don't like that at all. I want to use Cordon of Arrows and I want to get them all there. So I'm going to stick the cordon just there. As soon as it's there, they're going to get angry. I'm then going to use R and E, switch to melee, dodge in, use plant growth, and then just spam my encounters. I'm not thinking too much about what I'm doing. My job is then to change from stance to stance, and as soon as an encounter power becomes available, use it. As soon as it's there, aim at something and shoot. I'm going to drink some potions before we go in, just to increase my critical slightly. I'll pop that down there, pop that there, and pop that there. Beautiful. Run forward, they should all run at me soon. Gotcha. We get in, I want them all in a circle. Once they're all in a circle, I can move away, keep everything up, dodge out the reds, move in, make sure my next attack is a plant growth, because the plant growth is going to have the biggest percentage-wise damage. Move around them like a sheepdog, almost. You're keeping them all in a group. Once they're all in a group, we can stay. Make sure when you change to melee, you try and use plant growth if it's available. We kept them all together. We ran around them as a group. Let's take on a slightly more difficult enemy now. And again, I'm not going to change my powers. I'm not going to change what I'm doing. I'm just using all the encounters I've got. Aspect of the... okay, so again, we're all spread out annoyingly. We've got Gravehound. That guy over there is a problem, the Frost Giant, so I'm going to focus on him. If I focus on the Frost Giant, all the other enemies will come to me. And seeing as I'm using AoE attacks anyway, they're just going to walk into my damage. So here we go. Switch to ranged. Fire off. Get everything in. Dodge straight forward. You see how I dodged through one attack there? I wasn't actually trying to dodge through that attack. I literally said to you guys, if you're lucky, you will be able to dodge through an attack. And that is exactly what happened just then. And they've gone down straight away. Now if we have a look, I'm already on 11.1 million damage, and I am not the best geared HR in the game. I'm sitting just under 14k item level, 44,000 power, 23k. My critical strike can use some work. Look at this. My critical chance is 78%, severity is 94. I am by no means weak, but I am definitely not the top 1%. I can do this with a Hunter Ranger because I've played it for years. I can dodge, you can corral enemies together, do a load of damage. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to solo both Kessel's Retreat, the Lair of Lossmouth, and the Shores of Tern using the Hunter Ranger. If you want a class that is very, very versatile, but incredibly demanding, a very high cap to the skill level, I implore you to try the Hunter Ranger. And just so you know, the reason that Hunter Rangers have such a bad reputation is because there are so many people playing them badly. This is the way that I play. This is the way that I enjoy. And if it has been useful and helpful to see and have someone slowly explain the attacks I'm using, then drop me a message sometime or say hi in the game. Thank you very much for your time. I will see you online. My name is Josh Strife Hayes. Take care.